Hello and welcome to the Newscentre. I'm Shireen Bhan. The government has notified new rules to regulate online gaming companies and protect users. The rules define an online game as one that is offered on the internet and is accessible through a computer resource. More importantly, only games that allow a user access after making a deposit in either cash or kind is considered an online game. Further, the user must make such deposits with the expectation of earning winnings, which can also be in the form of either cash or kind. So any platform that offers a user access to one or more such online games will be classified as an online gaming intermediary. The rules say that both online games and intermediaries will be governed by self-regulating bodies, which will determine whether the games or the intermediary are permissible. Broadly, a game will be permissible if it involves will not be permissible if it involves the element of wagering or betting of money. Remember, these rules come even as various state governments have moved in to bring their own rules to clamp down on online gaming, which involves betting and gambling. Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have tried to pass legislations to ban games like online rummy and poker. The rules also mandate intermediaries to spell out withdrawal and refund policies and put in place privacy policies and safeguards. They must also ensure a robust KYC mechanism to prevent online games being used to launder money. Let's listen in to the Minister of State for Information Technology.
We are dealing with essentially a framework that allows for all online gaming to be determined as permissible or not by a self-regulatory organization. Permissibility will be determined by simple principles of whether wagering is involved, and if wagering is involved, then the SRO would be in a position to say that those online games are not permissible. The moment an online gaming trespasses into involving betting and wagering, regardless of the core content of the game, then it falls afoul of these rules.
Well, that is the Minister of State for Information Technology taking us through the rules that have been notified by the government today. Joining me now are Roland Landers, the CEO of the All India Gaming Federation, Trivikraman Thampy, the CEO and the co-founder of Games 24/7, and Deepak Gullapalli, the CEO and founder of Ace23. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us on the program. Roland, let me start by asking you, the draft rules were put out for public consultation at the start of this year. Since then, there has been some feedback and there have been comments that have come in from industry. I would imagine that you've only had a cursory look at the final notification that we're also going over in real time as we speak. But on balance, what do you believe the implications will be for the gaming industry?
Thank you, Shireen, for having me. I must qualify that my comments are based on the press conference of the Honorable Minister a little while ago. And we will comment further once we see the official gazetted notification. So as the oldest, largest and the most diverse industry body for online gaming, we are grateful for the MeitY to, for coming out with these rules that regulate online gaming under the IT Act. And we hope that these rules will provide certainty with stability and reduce state-wise regulatory fragmentation. So as the AIGF, we are extremely happy because the first consultation, as you mentioned, happened in June. So in quick time, in almost 7 to 8 months, the draft came out in January, and here we are today with the final rules. So we think it's a great move for the industry, and this will also give certainty to the online legitimate games, including pay-to-play gaming, and that is clearly differentiated from online betting and gambling, as mentioned by the Minister.
Absolutely. And yes, the hope is that this will, in a sense, provide certainty as far as the playing field is concerned. But we will need to see whether this is going to be something that state governments will follow through on. Trivikraman, let me come to you now. And let's look at the specifics of what the final notification is saying. It says that the online real money game does not involve wagering on any outcome. And the online gaming intermediary and such online game is in compliance with provisions of Rule 3 and 4. So essentially, as we just heard from the Minister as well, saying online wagering will run foul of the rules that have been notified by the government today. How do you see industry reacting to that? I'll come to play in just a second, but I wanted to get your comments on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think our understanding of wagering on outcome, and I would speculate and say that's likely the understanding of the entire industry, is basically that wagering on games which are purely outcome based and do not involve any performance of the user. For instance, roulette, where you're just betting on or wagering on whether the ball lands on number 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever that might be. Those are the games that I think these rules will not allow. And I think that kind of clarity and the fact that the games that are allowed, which are not allowing for wagering and betting on outcomes, specific outcomes like that, the games that are not doing that, being registered by certain self-regulatory bodies or self-regulatory organizations, will help solve a number of problems, actually. Number one, we've had a significant problem with offshore operators that are offering all kinds of illegal games inside the country. And now these games are obviously not going to be registered by any of the SRBs, which will ensure that customers understand, which games are blessed by the government as legal and which aren't, because I think most SRBs will probably come out with some sort of seals or registration marks that you have to carry on your game if it's been registered by the SRB. The other thing that I think it's going to solve for, we're really hoping it will solve for, is, as you brought about, a number of states initially introduced laws to ban online games of skill.
Yeah.
And one of the issues raised by at least some of the states has been that these games are hard to regulate. We don't know if there are bots in the game or if the RNG works well or not. Those are all things that now the SRBs can ensure that these games are actually kosher. They're running the way they're supposed to. There are no bots in the game. The RNG works as it's supposed to. So some of the concerns that the states had, which led them to ban games of skill, should really go away now. And with the center taking the lead on regulating games of skill, we are very, very hopeful that we don't see more such laws coming out from different states.
Well, that certainly is the expectation of industry, but we will have to wait to see. But Deepak, the notification does away with this game of skill, game of chance, which, by the way, is again a contentious matter, even as far as the GST issue is concerned. But I'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about this self-regulatory body that the government and this notification talks of. 3 to start with. They can, enhance this number. Now, here's what the notification says. The SRB is an entity that is a company registered under Section 8 of the Companies Act. Its membership is representative of the gaming industry. Its board of directors is comprised of individuals of repute who do not have any conflict of interest and possess special knowledge or practical experience. Then, of course, they go on to talking about other criteria that the SRB individuals who comprise of the board must conform with. But the SRB now, it seems to be that the SRB will give the final sign-off as far as what will be permissible and what will not.
Yeah, I think the definitions are pretty clear in terms of the skill games of chance. There's been a very long history in this country with Supreme Court various rules. I think these rules, what they're going to do is to make sure that genuine games of skill are being offered in this country, A, and B, the consumer safety is being taken care of, because these games, it involves financial transactions, and customer security and safety is also important. And it's very important. We welcome these rules, because this though they have given the ruling that SRBs have to decide what games are skill and games are not games of skill. But it is also important to note that these SRBs will function under the government, and government will have to ultimately approve it, right? And we would welcome such a decision, and it's much easier for enforcement of these rules in the country. We've seen in the Western world that such a structure really makes it easier for the enforcement officers to actually make sure that companies are following all the rules. And I personally think that this is the best structure that the government has come out, and much needed in today's world.
Okay, you believe that this is the best way forward. Roland, I want to come back now and talk about the issue that you brought up, and that is, the pay for play rule. And the government is essentially saying that, look, you need to adhere to KYC norms, something that Trivikraman was also talking about, how that becomes imperative because you do have offshore operators functioning here in the online gaming space. Also goes on to say things like an online gaming intermediary shall not finance by way of credit or enable financing to be offered by a third party for the purpose of playing online games, etc. What do you make of what the rules say on this front?
Yeah, so, the way we see it at the AIGF is that this is a decisive first step for comprehensive regulation to follow. And what this will do, propel the industry, the Indian industry, to compete globally. And this has been envisioned by the Honorable PM on several occasions. He has mentioned this also. The other thing is that the rules provide, for complete legitimacy. Now, it also giving us the opportunity to, as I said, to compete globally. Now, we look forward at the AIGF. Obviously, we will be putting forth the application for the SRB. Now, the thing is that we look forward to assisting the industry transition to the self-regulatory model envisioned by the rules. And this we've been already doing this for several years under the All India Skill Games Council, which is the oldest and the largest voluntary self-regulatory body determining games of skill and differentiating those from, those are especially the offshore betting and gambling. So we think that, this is going to be a great step. And the KYC norms we've had, the interaction, the industry consultation with the Honorable Minister and the team at METI, where we did give some inputs on, we are waiting to see the final rules, but, possibly graded KYC, starting with, a basic KYC leading up to a full KYC in some cases. And likewise for the other guidelines that have been set out, I think this is in sync with what the industry and the AIGF had asked for. And so we look forward to, those rules being implemented under the SRB.
Right. We will, of course, have to wait to see when these SRBs 3, which is what the government is planning at this point in time, do come up. But Trivikraman, there has been a fair degree of consultation, and these rules that we're discussing today are a result of the stakeholder feedback that the government has got. Now, I want to understand from you, whether it's KYC or it's the SRB structure or what qualifies as, online gaming, etc. Does it allay most of the concerns that the industry had? And does it now also provide a clear path as far as investors are concerned? Because that has been a question mark as well on the future as far as this industry and this business was concerned.
Shireen, that question's for me. I'm sorry. Just wanted to...
Yes, for you, Trivikraman.
No, I think, I mean, this is, I think Roland mentioned this, Deepak also mentioned this. This has just been pretty phenomenal for the industry. As Roland said, these discussions started in June. They published draft rules in January. I think it was a very, very inclusive process that the government adopted. Everybody in the industry was able to send their inputs, their feedback. And then the Honorable Minister and the Ministry, METI, basically organized a live session where industry members, and others were invited to present their views. And I think, we don't, again, just like you, we haven't seen the final draft rules, but given how the process was and how inclusive it was and how our feedback was taken, I'm expecting that it will address most of the concerns that the industry had raised. Irrespective, I think this is a giant first step. I think it creates a lot of predictability in the industry, particularly for, as you said, investors. I think this is going to bring more capital to the industry. This is going to create more startups, bring more entrepreneurs. It's just going to drive a lot more growth. And it is, as Deepak said, like a really awesome first step. Is there going to be more work beyond this? For sure. As Roland said, I think the eventual goal is to get to an online gaming law. But I think this is a great first step. And as we go along, I think the industry will work closely with the ministry, keep providing them inputs. I think the ministry is also going to learn more over time about the industry itself. This is the first step, as I said. And you know, I think we're really looking forward to working in a more certain, more stable regulatory regime as opposed to the regime in which we operated until now.
Yes, that certainly is the hope, that we won't be hit with ordinances, or the industry won't be hit with ordinances that we have seen many state governments resort to, and that is the expectation. But Deepak, you know, let me end by asking you, as both Roland and Trivikraman pointed out, that a lot of the consultation has happened and that has resulted in these rules being notified. But you know, any specific areas that you would like the government to look into? You know, there is, of course, the need of a grievance officer, grievance redressal, and so on and so forth, which I know that industry itself, as part of its code of conduct, has been looking into. But, you know, any friction points that you would like the government to address?
No, we are yet to see the rules and yet to understand what exactly has been drafted fully. But I want to make a point that, you know, both AIGF, EGF as a body, and we've been operating these businesses through these federations as a self-regulated, companies for the last about 10 to 15 years. And we have a lot of rules that we already follow. A lot of the members of both AIGF and EGF already follow a lot of set of rules. And we make sure there's customer security, KYC process being followed. All these companies are audited. So we have a lot of experience, and we want to see how the rules are fully drafted. And we've actually, as Vikram said, we work with the governments to make sure these rules are framed in a way that will help both the companies, the industry grow, invite a lot more investments, and most importantly,
right.
Establish three broad guidelines which would be used as basic principles by the self-regulatory organizations to determine which one of the real money games can be determined to be a permissible online real money game versus a non-permissible one.
But just for clarity and for the benefit of our viewers, the mere aspect of there being a payment element does not bar a game altogether.
Absolutely. Real money games don't mean that they are not permissible. Real money games which involve wagering on the outcome of that game, regardless of whether that game is a game of skill or a game of chance, when it involves money, there is no problem if it only involves money. But the moment it involves money and is a real money game, but involves wagering on the outcome of the game, then that is a no-go area for the Indian internet.
So another key aspect that you pointed out was the SROs, the function of deciding which games are permissible and which aren't. And that function has been delegated to the SROs. Can you tell us about the number of SROs that we're looking at, the composition of the SROs, how will they go about it?
Yeah, look, this is, first of all, you know, you are aware that the whole online gaming space is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity for Indian startups and young Indians all over the country. And so therefore our whole objective is not to be policing the online gaming, but certainly to regulate one small sliver of it. And we want the online gaming ecosystem to grow rapidly to being a multi-billion-dollar ecosystem over the next coming years. But very clearly, it is also clear from the industry and indeed all stakeholders that they don't want government too deeply involved in this innovation ecosystem, and that has been the direction from our Honorable PM as well. So we have created these institutions called the SROs, which will be built around the stakeholders of the gaming industry, including but not limited to industry, and they will be based on the principles that the government has laid down on permissibility of non-wagering, user harm, and addictive behavior of games. Using those basic principles, they will create the capability and capacity to be able to scrutinize online gaming and certify them.
One final question, sir, on the issue of the government barring wagering and betting in all shapes and forms as far as these rules are concerned. We've also seen very specific legislations by individual states. There has been an apprehension expressed that perhaps this may build in redundancies in law where gambling is
I
being
don't think
barred
so
by
at
different
all.
legislation?
Look, whenever there is a state that is doing this in the interest of being right, which is basically they want to prohibit betting, these online gaming rules today are completely consistent with that. But if there are some states or some jurisdictions that are trying to slice and dice wagering into other slivers and are doing so for vested interests, certainly they will come in conflict with these rules. We are very clear. We do not want the Indian internet to have something as harmful as betting, whether they are foreign platforms or Indian platforms. We have also made sure through the rules that there will be no surrogate advertising or any kind of indirect presence of these betting platforms on the Indian internet. And the IT Act and the rules are what regulate the Indian internet. And so we have the rules today.
So one question on misinformation, that's the big takeaway as far as the IT rules, of course, are concerned. Just a word in terms of what the implications could be in terms of intermediaries and how will this fact checker be notified? These are the two aspects that the industry is hoping for.
Yeah, so I think today's PIB fact checking inclusion in the rules is a continuation of what we did in October 2022, where we put down a very clear rule under 31B5, where misinformation and patently false information, it is an obligation of the intermediary to not host that type of content. And so today what we have said is to help those intermediaries who say, how do we determine what is patently false or what is misinformation? What do we do? How do we do this? We have said in the context of government information, there will be this fact-checking unit that will tell you what is right and wrong. And it's certainly up to you to go by their fact check. And if you choose not to do so, then those who are aggrieved by the false information or the fake information will certainly have the right to pursue their case in the court of law.
Thank you so much for joining us on CNBC-TV18.
Well, that is the Minister of State for Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, in conversation with Ashmit Kumar, our colleague who's there. Let me very quickly get wrap-up comments from our guests who have been listening in. Trivikraman, you were talking about this business of the government saying that wagering on the outcome will not be permissible. Of course, the SRBs will now need to look at what is permissible or not. But just on balance, from what you heard there from the Minister, your quick takeaway.
Very encouraging. I mean, I would say, especially the part about, this has been a key area of concern for the industry, the whole state center thing. I think he pointed out that states can and they have the prerogative to pass laws against, games that involve betting, which are exactly the kind of content that Mehti is saying that will not be allowed under the SRBs. But if the states, and I'm maybe paraphrasing him to some extent here, but if the states were to, slice and dice things more finely and try to ban games, for instance, games of skill, this would be my take, on which people are putting money in the form of entry fees to win prizes, then that would certainly come in conflict with the rules. And I hope that that states are going to take cognizance of that and ensure that we won't end up in a space where we're having rules that, state center rules that are conflicting with each other.
Yes, well, we will have to wait to see whether there will be conflicting views coming in, but that's the view from the central government. Roland, Deepak and Trivikraman, many thanks for joining us here as we made sense in real time of the notification issued by the central government on online gaming, what is allowed, what is not allowed. And of course, this is a developing story. And as they say, the devil often lies in the details. So we will, of course, pore over the fine print and come back to the three of you for further clarification if needed. Many thanks for joining us here on the News.